this you like the sky was opened up yellow, and it was a saucer shaped thing hanging across the highway in the sky. And it didn't have blinking lights. It wasn't flying around, it wasn't, I couldn't tell, it wasn't, metallic. It was just like the sky opened up. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And I pulled off, and I'm like, and she's like, oh my gosh. I got out of the car. There were other cars pulled over. And this is one of the things that happened to me right after the going bar, why I believe in stuff. And I stood there and watched this thing, and it took up the skyline. And before our eyes, the thing just shrunk and disappeared. Boom. Hi, this is Carmen Turner Schott, and this is your superior self.
Oh, Carmen, thank you for taking the time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
hmm yeah, I had to get you on here, becoming more interested and curious about astrology and the science behind that. So, this is going to be 101, like kind of a basic,
Hmm.
entry class into your full-time gig of like reading chart. And you're also, I think, a
Sure.
licensed social worker too, right?
Yes, yes.
So I have been dabbling in some counseling psychology graduate classes,
Oh, good.
and they don't teach you astrology, by the way. I'm just letting you guys
No.
know. Uh, so I'm very
Yeah,
interested in how you came to be an astrologer, right? Like how this
yeah,
unfold. Was it in your charts? Maybe I don't know.
yeah. Well, it all started when I was 16. I kind of, I was always different, and I always was very sensitive. And the only way I know I can explain it is I was intuitive, and I would kind of know things and feel things, and I would dream. I was a very vivid dreamer, and I would dream about things, and then they would happen. And as you can imagine, no one could explain that to me, and no one understood it. And so I just always felt really alone and different than all my friends and family and everybody, because they weren't like me. And one night when I was 16, I woke up, and there was a glowing ball of light in my doorway. And it was about the size of a little bigger than the softball. It was like translucent yellow white. And I had no voice. I couldn't move. I couldn't yell for my mother and my parents. I was frozen. And I watched this thing for hours just kind of float there in my doorsill. And I kept saying in my mind, don't have it come in my room. And it didn't. And after hours of watching it, it's like I was released, and I had my voice, and I yelled for my mother, and she saw it too. So I finally had a witness. She saw this thing, and she's like, I don't know what it was. And I believed that it was like an angel or spirit guide. And after that experience, pretty much, I started getting obsessed with learning more about spirituality and angels and ghosts and spirit guides. And I went into this little mystical bookstore, and I'm like, I want to get some books to find out why I'm different and why I have these things happen to me, right? So I got a little book on astrology, and it was a little book on Virgo. That's my sun sign. And earth sign, like you're a Taurus, we're earth signs. And I started looking, I'm like, this is me. And why is this accurate? And I started teaching myself how to do my chart. And back in it was like 1993, right? 94. Back then, there were no computer programs that you can do, put everything in that calculates. You had to do it by hand. So I draw it, make all the houses, draw the planets, do the aspects, everything was by hand in the old days. And I became an expert at it, and I started practicing on friends and family. And then I started kind of an entrepreneurship, like a part-time gig through graduate school. When I was getting my master's in social work, I would do consults, and I would do it for free. And I would realize that this is deeper and more powerful than 8 sessions of psychotherapy. Like doing a chart for someone, they would cry, they would tell me all these things. They were like, this validated my life in one session. And I realized, wow, this is a powerful tool. And it's a tool of self-awareness. And it's a tool that can be used in counseling and therapy, just like, four lenses and cognitive behavior therapy, all these things. But it's even more powerful and deeper, because I believe it was created by God, by the universe. And that I believe since ancient times, people have always studied astrology. And it's even in the Bible. And so I have a lot of theories, a lot of research I've done on it, that it's not evil, it's not bad. It is a powerful tool of self-awareness when it is used appropriately. And so I started becoming an astrologer part-time. And then I always had my normal job as a licensed social worker, working with trauma survivors, with children, just in different, private practice, different things in my life. And I've always done both. I've always had two jobs. And that kind of has to do with the midheaven, our career house in our birth chart, which I can talk about later. What kind of careers we're drawn to, what kind of work we're supposed to do is kind of that 10th house cusp in our birth wheel. But that's kind of how I got into astrology. It became my passion. And I've read and studied and I taught myself. I never took really classes in it. I just started seeing these patterns and these validations through meeting people all over the world. And I started writing articles and people would email me. And this is back before we had Facebook or any of that. And they would say, thanks for writing that. It's like you talked exactly how I feel. How did you know? And I started research and I found a lot of patterns and I wrote a lot of books. And my most recent book is Phoenixes and Angels, Mastering the 8th and 12th Houses, which this is the cover. And this has been a lot of my research, the 12th and 8th houses in a birth chart, because they're the spiritual houses. They're the deep mystical houses. And people that have planets there have a lot of unexplained experiences. And all of these things I had happen to me, they've had happen to them. And I realized I'm not different. This is my birth chart. And I started seeing these patterns in thousands of people. And so that's how I ended up writing my book. I share client stories, different experiences I've had with unexplained experiences, with dreams, mystical things you can't explain, coincidental things, knowing something and then it happens. People with 8th and 12th house planets are born this way. And also people that have a lot of Pisces or Scorpio energy in their birth chart. And so that's how I ended up writing this book specifically that just came out in July. But I have some other books out there. And my mission is to teach astrology and talk about it on a basic level where anyone can understand it. Because when a lot of people shy away from it, because it is a lot of math and science, it's calculations and there's symbols. It's all symbols. So people are like, I don't know what this is. Once you know the symbols and the energy behind them, and in my books, I make it really basic and simple so people can understand the basics. And that's kind of what I do. And that's my mission.
Wow, that's so fascinating, right? Like, yeah, you showed me my birth chart, right? And I looked at it and I was like, holy crap. Like, I don't know any of this.
Right.
I know I'm a Taurus, that's it, right? Because everyone talks about it. Like
Sure.
they have the sun signs in the newspaper, you can read it and whatever. I never heard about the moon sign. I never heard about any of this stuff. The houses, I don't understand what that means. I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But why is there a stigma behind it, right? Like why has this been frowned upon, especially in the religious
Yes.
perspective?
Yes. I believe my opinion is that it was to control people. Because back in ancient times, astrology was a part of culture. It was a part of everyday life. Even in ancient Israel, they have the 12 zodiac signs on the money on the floor of the temple. I mean, the 12 sons of Jacob represent the 12 sun signs of the zodiac. I mean, there's all of these astrological, biblical, called astro theology references. And then what happened was, I think, during the Nicene Creed, they decided only certain books would be in the Catholic Bible, and the Catholic Bible has different books than the Protestant Bible, right? And so there's a lot of history and ancient writing that's been taken out. And I'll tell you, the Old Testament, there's like one or two verses about astrology in there, and people use that as the end all be all to say it's bad. We're not supposed to do it. And it really isn't, because in the New Testament, Jesus talked about astrology. Astrology is in the book of Revelation, and it's hidden throughout the Bible in symbols. But if you don't know the symbols of the signs and astrology, you wouldn't know what it meant when you're reading it. And so I've done a lot of research on it. And so, like an example, when the disciples asked Jesus, when will we know you'll return? He said, there shall be signs in the sun, moon, and stars upon my return. Very interesting thing to say, right? Well, that's astrology, the transits, the different movements of the planets through the sky. And then he also said, follow the man with the alabaster jar in the house that he dwells. That is the sign of Aquarius. And, we talk about the Aquarian age. We're getting into the age of Aquarius, which is enlightenment, awakening, technology advancement, scientific knowledge, space travel. I mean, UFOs, all this stuff. And so when Christianity was created and founded, it was the age of Pisces. And that's why Jesus is associated with the sign Pisces, the fish, the two fishes. He fished, and that's the symbol of Christianity is the fish. So we're kind of in this age of Aquarius now, is what a lot of astrologers believe. And Jesus predicted that. He said it to the disciples, right? So I teach a lot about it. I write a lot of articles because I consider myself a Christian astrologer. And people like, oh, what does that mean? Well, I believe in Jesus. I believe that there's a lot that we don't know. And I'm open-minded. And that's only because I've had these personal experiences that have changed my life. If I wouldn't have these experiences, I would probably still be very strict Baptist like I was raised, right? And so, but I wasn't. And I knew what I experienced, and I've seen other people's experiences. And I know there's more to the spiritual world and to religion than we have been told. I believe I believe in, secret teachings, secret knowledge. I've read all those books. I'm into that too. But I know because I've experienced these things. I used to always say, if I see it, I'll believe it. That was kind of my thing. If I see it, I'll believe it. And I've seen things, and now I believe.
Well, I
And
have to be honest with you. As a young boy, I stayed away from that book of Revelation. I can tell you that right
oh,
now.
it's scary. Yeah, right.
I would,
And,
growing up in a Methodist church, I was like, I'm
uh-huh.
not reading that. You
Uh-uh.
stay away from me.
Well, what's really cool is, I lived in Germany for a while, for 6 years, and I traveled a lot over in Europe and went to Egypt, Turkey, different places. But these churches throughout the world have zodiac symbols in the churches. So why is there astrological symbols in churches across the world? Because it's connected to religion. And this is what I started researching. And even here in St. Louis, I'm live near St. Louis, Missouri. There's a beautiful cathedral here called the St. Louis Cathedral. Gold ceilings, immaculate art. I mean, it's beautiful. And I went back and was looking in the back area, and there was the signs, the four fixed signs of the zodiac, which people wouldn't know are in the church. So they have Jesus there, and then there's the face of an eagle, the face of a bull, which is Taurus, eagle is Scorpio, the ancient symbol, and then there's the face of a lion, which is Leo, and its polar opposite in the sky, which is Aquarius, the face of a man or the water bearer.
Hmm.
And that is in the Catholic Cathedral in St. Louis, Missouri. That's just one church. There are churches throughout the world that I've seen the four fixed signs, which are in the book of Revelation. And so there's all of these astrological things throughout the Bible, but we're missing a lot of books. I do believe that. And I wasn't raised Catholic, but I was always drawn to the Catholic faith. And I went to Catholic college for undergrad and to play basketball. And I started really getting drawn to the Catholic faith and researching it. And it's interesting because it's very, symbolic and all these things. And I realized that a lot of my Catholic friends were more open to astrology than most other religions were. And I think that's because, they believe in the saints. They believe in some mystical things like possession, right? So I think that they're a little bit more open-minded than some religious faiths, right? The Protestant faiths,
Sure.
and I found that. And they say that I've done a lot of research about it, but I've wrote some articles about Christianity and astrology, and I put them into a little ebook, but I had them out there on about.com years ago. And sometimes Christian folks email me and ask me, I know astrology is accurate, but I feel like it's wrong to study it. And I help them. I give them tips because I went through that. I mean, I went through a long time where I'm like, is it okay that I'm doing this? Is it okay that I'm studying this? And I've always had validation. Yes, because I use it to help people. I use it to help people understand themselves and others. And I'm not telling people anything they don't already know about themselves. I'm validating their life. And it's because you have a plan. God has a plan. There's a soul mission for all of us. And our mission is found in the birth chart.
Hmm. So I want to hear about some of these experiences that you've been
Oh,
leading and hinting up to, right? Like I'm a believer if I see
oh
it.
my
What
goodness.
did you
Oh my god.
see?
Well,
Or
the
what did
first
you
thing,
experience? Like the most
well, the
powerful experience, right?
wow, there's a lot.
Well, whatever
The
first comes to mind.
yeah, I think the first would be the dreams. The dreams of things that ended up happening. So the first dream I ever had, I'll never forget, it was about my neighbor, a guy friend of mine that lived up the hill. And I went to bed one night, had this very vivid dream, and I wake up in my dreams where I'm awake, but I'm not really awake. And then I panic because I realize I'm mentally awake, but I'm in a dream. And then I'm really awake back in my bed, right? So that kind of happened to me a lot. And I knew that I was awake and no one could explain to me. They're like, oh, you're just imaginative. No, I was awake in my dream, but no one could explain it to me. Now I know that that's very common. It's called lucid dreaming. And so I dreamed about him and he came down the hill and it's very vivid. It's like a real memory. My dreams are like memories. They're so vivid. And so he came down the hill and he was in a white t-shirt, hat, and glasses. I'll never forget because I never saw him in glasses. He came and sat on the curb in the dream, started crying, told me his parents were getting divorced, and then he hugged me. And then I woke up. The next day, I was home for the summer from my freshman year in college, and I went to work, came back, and that night my phone rang just like the dream. It was him. Said, I need to see you. I said, okay. I go outside. He comes down the hill wearing the same thing he had in the dream, came, and I was like deja vu. I'm like, oh my God, I dreamed this. I was sitting there in shock. Like I knew what he was going to say. So my parents are getting divorced. And the whole thing happened. I said, I just dreamed this last night. Exactly what you just said to me. And no one in my life could explain it to me. So I became obsessed with dreams and dream work and learning about dream symbols. And why do I dream things? Well, it's because I have a lot of 12th house planets, and that's Pisces energy. That's the 12th house is the most mystical house in astrology in our chart, and it rules dreams, it rules sleep. And that was why, because my sun is there, my main identity, and my Venus. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why I dream. And then this is really cool. I've been doing research. I'll randomly select 30 charts from people in my Facebook group, right? And I don't know them, never talked to them before. And I ask if you have the sun, moon, or three or more planets in the 12th astrological house, send me your chart and answer these five questions. And the number one was you've had psychic dreams of the future. And out of 30 charts, 29 out of 30 said yes, they have dreamed their whole life about things that have happened. And so I know I'm not special. I'm not alone. It is our chart. It is energy. It is our personality of why some people have these things happen. I can see it in their chart. And then that makes them feel like, that's why I wrote these books, was for the people that have reached out to me in my Facebook groups. And but it's really cool to see that scientific research. So instead of just anecdotal research, from counseling people, I'm actually starting to do some scientific data, some evaluation studies on random charts. And I'm going to have an article published about it, of the 5 patterns that I've seen with astrology, with the 12th house specifically, and people that have a lot of Pisces energy, with dreams, being very lack of boundaries between themselves and others, right? Mystical experiences. All these kind of patterns are very common. And that's why I write my books. And it's fun. I love it. It's my passion. I love talking about it. You can ask me anything. I mean, I can try to explain, what a birth chart is in a very basic way if you want me to.
Sure. Well, I have this like
Mhm.
very curious question is what is it about astrology? What is it about the planet's energy
Mhm.
that influences our personalities and our
Mhm.
missions here on in life, right? Like it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you saw that movie Soul, where all those little
Uh,
souls are going through the factory and they're all
yeah.
coming out and like different
Yeah.
personalities and stuff. And that's what I like the image in my
Yeah.
mind when it comes to astrology is like, is this the machine that just, everyone has these different personalities and they're shooting them in there, right? Like, what is it about
Yeah.
the planet's energy that influences our destiny, our missions, our personalities, all of that?
Yeah. Well, a real basic way is number one, we're not a body, we're a soul. So our energy has an imprint. So our soul, our real essence, is in another realm called heaven, other side of the world, in a different realm before we come into the earth. So our soul, our essence, whether you believe in past lives or not, if you don't, that's okay. But our soul is not here, but it lives before it comes into the physical realm. And so right before we're born, this is what a lot of astrologers believe, it's what I believe, is that our soul decides when it's going to come back into the earth realm. So we pick our parents, we pick the timing and the right circumstance and energy for our soul to come back into the earth realm for learning. It's kind of like it's a school, and we want to come and learn. Our soul wants to learn lessons, and believe it or not, we pick it. We choose our chart. And people are like, there's no way I would ever choose my chart, Carmen. My chart sucks. And I'm like, no, you chose your chart. And once they realize that, it makes them feel less like a victim. And then they realize, you know what, you're right. I wanted, I may not remember, but I wanted to learn this lesson. And that's what it is. And so let me explain. So when you're looking at it from the earth up at the sky on the day, month, year, exact time, and place of your birth, all of the planets are in a certain star constellation, which we call the 12 zodiac signs. So in our solar system, there's 12 constellations in the ecliptic, and it's a circle. The moon, the sun, it all goes, it's all scientific. It moves around a circle, right? A wheel. All of the planets were in a certain sign, one of the 12, and it was in a certain area of the sky. So astrologers, we break the sky into 12 sections when you're looking up at it, when you're the moment and place and everything of your birth. And we take a picture of the sky and put it on a piece of paper. And that's what that wheel is that I sent you. And so if you're looking in the center, the earth is in the center. And that is what the sky looked like when you were born, when your soul chose to come into this realm. And that is your birth chart. That is your personality chart. It has your karma. It has, because every planet rules different energy, which I can explain. And so when you know your chart, we look at all the planets, what they rule, what their energies are, what area of life they're in, because they're in a certain area of the sky. We break it into houses. Each house rules an area of life. So the first house is your physical appearance, your body, how people first perceive you, which is also what we call the rising sign. So if your rising sign is different than your sun sign, people misjudge you. They think that you're one way, but then when they get to know you, you're like, oh, you're nothing like I thought you were. That's because it's the mask that we wear. It fools people, right? The rising sign. And so the first house is how you look, how you portray yourself, your personality, your goals, your drive. The second house is money and finance. Okay. The third house is communication. It's journaling, writing, publishing, radio, networking, short journeys, education, teaching basic knowledge, siblings. The fourth house rules your home and family, your childhood, your parents, your grandparents, your home, your future home with your partner. The fifth house is children, creativity. It's where you do your self-expression. So if you have a lot of fifth house planets, people typically are artistic and creative. It's love affairs. It's the house of fun. It's the house of pleasure. And then the sixth house is health, diet, routine. So looking at the sixth house in a chart, we can see, how we are at work, what kind of worker we are, what kind of health issues we might be vulnerable to, what kind of routine we need. Do we need structure or not? Do we, all those things. And then the seventh house is marriage and partnership, relationships. And so whatever sign is on, we call it the descendant, is the sign across from the ascendant, and it is the marriage cusp. So whatever sign is on that cusp of that area of life is how we are in relationships, or the type of people that we attract. Doesn't mean they're the most compatible with us, but we attract them. And so looking at a whole chart, I can tell people what a good relationship match is, and what some more challenging relationships would be. I can also look and see, okay, what planets are in that seventh house, because some of them might be more caution to have a partner. I may say, you know what, you need to be careful who you marry and who you attract. Like if Neptune's there, you can be fooled and have illusion, right? And have some suffering and believe someone is like you think they are, and they're nothing like you thought they were. They could have addiction. So there's certain things that, you know, we interpret when we look at these houses in your chart. And then the eighth house is death, rebirth, resurrection, transformation, trauma, crisis intervention. That's what my book's about, Phoenix's Angels, the eighth house. Eighth and 12th houses are the two most spiritual houses in astrology. So the eighth house people often lose a loved one at a young age. So if you have planets in the eighth house, you're impacted by death, by loss. You also have a lot of strange, unexplained experiences, psychic, intuitive, perceptive, very private, very secretive, very emotional people, right? Passionate, and they're drawn to psychology. They're drawn to, you know, why do people act the way they are? That's eighth house, you know, because it's ruled by Scorpio. Every planet and every sign rules one of the houses, right, in that wheel. And so Scorpio rules the eighth house. That's how it gets all its dark and mystical energy. And then the ninth house is travel, foreign travel, far away from your homeland. It's about higher education, going to college, taking classes, learning. And then you got the 10th house, which is midheaven, the 10th midheaven, and that's career, the public, your image, what kind of success you're going to have, right, in your career. And we look at what sign is on that 10th house cusp, and I can tell you what kind of careers you're drawn to or what might be good for you, right? And then we can see as there's certain planets there that might affect your career, right, for good or bad, and give tips. And then we have the 11th house, which is friendship, groups, humanitarian causes, networking, acquaintances, hopes, wishes, and dreams. It's the house that's ruled by Aquarius. The sign Aquarius rules the 11th house. So it's an air house, right? And then we got the 12th house, which is the final house. And it's one of my favorites. And I call 12th house people angels. And I call 8th house people phoenixes, because the angel energy is Pisces energy. It's Neptune energy. It's 12th house energy. And it's all about finding your oneness with God in the universe. It's about suffering. It's about sacrifice. It's about escapism. It's about solitude. It's about finding the meaning of life. It's a very, very mystical house. It rules dreams, sleep, serving other people, attracting people that have problems. Because if you have 12th house planets, people are drawn to you. And so they become angels. And most 12th house people that have planets there feel like they're not from Earth. They tell me, I feel like, that's why I call them angels. Yep. Well, you've got Neptune in your south node there. That's why you've been an angel. You've been a fallen angel, a 12th houser. Your past lives you mastered the 12th house. You've already mastered it. So now you're learning to be in the practical real world in the 6th house of serving others in a practical way, having a routine, having structure, going out into the real world, which you're not used to that because you like to have your solitude and escape from all the stress of the world, right? So this is your destiny, is to master and balance your nodes, right? That 12th and 6th house energy. You don't have to give it up. You just have to do both. And we're more comfortable and cozy in our south node because that's what we've mastered in our soul, deep in your soul. You've been a Sagittarius and you've been a 12th houser. So you've been a traveler, a seeker of knowledge, an adventurer, freedom loving. You like your freedom and independence. You like to be outdoors. You don't want to be tied down. And then this lifetime, you're learning to be a Gemini, which is communication, teaching, sharing knowledge, right? But also freedom and independence. Similar. You still need your freedom and
Oh
independence.
my goodness. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. Are you serious? Like,
You
this
can,
is so crazy.
is it cool?
It's so
Now let me
spot
ask
on
you,
right now, right?
are you like, what helps you? I'll be honest, what really helps you is you've got a lot of Taurus. And Taurus, but that in your soul, you're a Sag. So if you read a lot about Sagittarius, they're the free spirit. A lot of them choose not to marry. They're like, I don't want to be tied down. Like, you can have relationships, but and companionship, but you don't want anyone controlling you or telling you you can or can't do things, or jealousy. You don't like jealous people. You don't, you like to be free. And your Aries moon makes you very passionate and very much an action kind of person. Aries moon makes you very resilient, very blunt, straightforward, honest, direct. You go after what you want. You're a hard worker. You like to work for yourself. You want to be independent and self-reliant. That's the Aries moon. Your emotional nature wants to be self-reliant, and Sag wants to be free. So the Taurus balances you a little bit because it makes you want to be cozy and comfortable and have a stability. So you got a good balance. You got a really good balance, in your chart.
Yeah. You said something about you can see our karma, right? Like, what is karma
Yes.
to you? What does that mean?
Yeah. So there's a couple, what I believe two things. So I believe that there's some things that we have to balance, and that we all come here with learning, and we have to balance out our karma. And to do that, we have to go through experiences. Some of them are good and bad. So we have good karma, right? We may have, if we helped someone in the past, then they may help us this time, or we help them again. If we've hurt someone in the past, we may not remember it. We may have to be hurt. And so we are playing out these roles, so to speak, to balance out the karma, which is all about our souls are looking to learn. That's why we come, to forgive and to learn and grow. And it seems real simple, but this is what most religions and most spiritual teachings show. Edgar Cayce, Dolores Cannon, all these books, all this research I've done, they always say the same thing, that we choose to come here. Our soul wants to come. And I'm like, how would I want to come back here? Like, I don't want to come back, right? I always say, I want to be done. And, but apparently we choose to come back because we're not thinking with our conscious mind. When we're in a soul form, we're seeing things different. But I believe that the chart shows your karma. It shows inclinations, tendencies, and urges. It shows the potential of certain experiences that we have to go through. But I also believe that we have free will and choice. Some things are destined to happen, and I've seen it in a chart. No matter what I tell someone, they're meant to live through something and go through it. And
Can
they're
you
meant
see
to.
that in my chart? Can you see the destiny points?
Yeah, your destiny points.
If it's
I
bad,
look
don't
at.
say anything.
No, it's not bad.
Oh
You,
God, here we
you,
go. It's not
no, you,
bad, but
no, you're meant to be a powerful healer. You're meant to share deep things with people and help them grow and heal and open up their minds. You like to talk about deep, real stuff. Like, you don't like superficial stuff. Like, you're bored easy. Like, you need deep mental stimulation. Like, you need somebody on your mental level that can talk about all kinds of stuff, right? That's what you need. But you got Scorpio on your career house, and a lot of Scorpios are drawn to psychology, therapy, detective work, FBI agents, criminal justice, finding serial killers, all this stuff. It's all that dark and taboo kind of stuff. But also spirituality, mysticism, things that can't be explained. Scorpios love that. They love the mystical, right? So you have that on there. And Scorpios and Tauruses like to make money. I'm not gonna be honest with you. They want to be successful. They want to have money, and they like nice things. Okay. So
yes, we do.
you need that. And Tauruses work really hard, and you're Taurus, and you think like a Taurus, and your Mars is in Taurus, and then you got an Aries moon. So nothing's going to stop you when you have a goal. You're going to be driven to achieve your goals. So you're a hard worker. You're Earth sign. Earth signs are the workers of the zodiac. So they work hard, and you're patient. See, Tauruses are one of the most patient signs. Because you'll work slow, step by step. Tauruses don't like big change. But what helps you is you can strategically think about all your goals, or saving money, or if you want to buy a home, all the things you want to do in the future, and plan it. You like to plan. But then you have this Aries moon that wants action. You want immediate action. You don't want to wait. And so you have these two different sides of you, right? And it's interesting because I'm an Aries moon, and I'm a Virgo sun, which is Earth, and so a lot of people don't know this about Aries moons, but we have a hidden temper. And I don't know if you'll admit it or not, but
Oh, I'll admit it for sure, right?
okay.
Like, it's something I've had to work on my entire
Yeah,
life.
right? Because when we feel something, it's so intense and boom, it comes right out. It's like it just
But I always
and
thought that
we
was like trauma. You know what I mean? Like I always thought that was like hidden traumas from past experiences that I don't remember.
no, this is your moon in Aries, man. You're like me. I only show it with those that know me well, like in my personal life. Like people at work don't typically see it, because we hide it until we feel comfortable, and then we vent. We get loud, we get passionate and intense, and we're like, I can't believe this, and we just have to express it when it comes. And then guess what? We get over it quick. We're like, okay, let's go to dinner. And everybody else is still mad at us because we got all upset, right? We're like, we're over it now. We feel better. We vented, So, Aries moon, they need to vent and express those intense emotions, because Aries moon is a powerful moon, emotional placement of your moon, because it's the resilient warrior. They like a challenge. They like conflict. They go into battle with that sword, right? And they're the advocate. They go for the underdog. They try to, they want to help people too. But they want to succeed. They're very motivated to achieve their goals. So that really helps your Taurus, because it makes you a little bit less stubborn. Tauruses are known to be very stubborn and strong-willed, and they only when they believe something, no one can change their mind. But your Sag South Node, your soul has Sag. Sages are easygoing. They're mutable. They're adaptable. So you have a little good balance here to help you. Even though you have a lot of Taurus, you're not as stubborn as most Tauruses, or you know what I mean? As strong-willed. You're a little bit more open-minded, but you also like your comfort and stability, and you like peace and harmony. And you probably, nature helps you heal. Like being out in nature with the trees and the mountains and all that is really good for you to heal and replenish your energy and stuff like that. Because Taurus rules the senses. So anything with talking, your voice, sound, hearing, sight, taste, smell, all of that, Tauruses have a heightened, and they're also creative. Tauruses are ruled by Venus. So even though they're very practical, when you read about them in a book, it'll be like, oh, you're practical, you're stubborn, basic. The thing about Taurus that most people don't know is a lot of them can sing. They like music. A lot of them are in bands. They do art, creativity. They can paint, draw. So they have an artistic side to them that they might not pursue because they don't think it'll make money or that it's practical. But they're very talented in a lot of different things. So I would say you probably have some talents that people don't know about.
Sure. I had to put this bad boy together, this podcast, right? Like,
right. Well, this is perfect.
Yeah, this is like me like investigating the stuff that people can't really wrap their minds around, right? Like astrology, UFOs, out of body experiences, near death experiences, all of that stuff. I love researching this and like hearing people's stories and accounts of the uncommon, because it kind of wakes you up, right? Like what is going on in this reality? Like what is it that we're here to do, right? So I'm just so fascinated with your work, because to your point, yes, there is like this catharsis or cathartic like release almost when you hear all of these commonalities and what you're saying about my personality with the planets and the stars, right? Like you're hitting things spot on, and it's like it's very unique to me, right? Like there are some, if you read a newspaper, it's very generic to me, right? Like it's like whatever, like, okay, whatever, it sounds great, but no. But you're like hitting on points that like no one knows about, right? Like talking about my temper, right? Yeah, like no one's ever told me that before, right? Like I know that I have it, but I've always tried to suppress it because it's like I always thought it was hidden trauma. I was like, all right, well, I'll just ignore it because it's just something is triggering me right now, right?
Sure.
Never thought about it in a astrological standpoint. Like this is a part of who I am, so it's like more accepting. It's like it's like more of accepting of who I am, and like, oh, that makes more sense.
Well, the Aries moon, the moon sign helps us heal, and it helps us find emotional fulfillment, and it's where our passion is, and it's where we find happiness. And Aries moons, what helps them heal is getting angry and getting pissed off, because that makes them want to survive. So no matter how bad life gets or the trauma or challenges that happen, an Aries moon is one of the most resilient moon signs in astrology. And I have a whole book about that. But an Aries moon doesn't give up. And they need to use that anger, that drive, and that sheer will to survive, to overcome life challenges, and they do. And they move on quickly from things. So Aries moons are known to get over emotional things quickly, more quickly than most signs. But your Taurus sun, you have this other side of you. Taurus is like to hold on to everything, and they're nostalgic, and they remember everything everyone said and did to them, because that's one of their things, is letting go. They have to let go of the past and forgive. That is a big thing for Taurus. And I got a South Node Taurus, so my soul is a Taurus girl, and I'm supposed to let it go and become a Scorpio, which has been really hard, and it has really been painful. But I'm getting there, because I had to finally embrace it and say, okay, I've got to quit being. I got to let the past go. I can't do this anymore. I don't want another test. Don't universe, don't knock me down. So, but my Aries moon made me very athletic, and so I don't know if you. I was always good at all sports, and no one taught me. I love sports. Basketball was my thing, but I also played softball, everything. But basketball was my thing, and that's where I had my temper, or that Aries outlet would come out on the basketball court. In real life, I was a Virgo. I was earth. I was shy. I thought it was wrong to show anger. So I was the same way. Like, I never really knew what anger was. And when I would feel it, I would think, oh, I'm not supposed to feel like this. Right.
Shame,
And
right? For
really,
having anger. Yeah.
yeah, like we're not supposed to. But Aries are naturally passionate, and an Aries moon is ruled by Mars, which is the planet of passion, anger, drive, conflict, right? So our emotions are very intense and quick. And the biggest thing we have to learn as Aries moons, and believe me, I have to do it all the time, is to step back and wait, and do not say, watch what I say, and don't put anything in writing when you're mad. Wait, because I'm like typing, right? No, you need to step away, take a deep breath, and get calm. And then I might call a friend or two and vent, and get it all out. And then I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't send that email, right?
For
And then,
sure.
because then I feel better, or the person I reacted to something that really wasn't what I thought it was. So Aries react, and we have to learn to be a little bit more patient, and be a little bit more cautious about expressing our truth, because sometimes we want to say something and share it too quickly, and we don't think about it first and kind of calm down. But you've got a lot of Taurus that helps you, and I got a lot of Virgo that helps me. So you have a good balance. You're not an Aries stellium. Okay. You got a lot of Taurus that helps you be calm and chill and easygoing and peaceful, because Taurus is your energy. I know a lot of Tauruses. I draw them. I got a lot of friends that are Taurus, and they just make me feel better. They instantly bring me down and make me feel calm. Because I'm up here like go, 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 kind of anxious, and I just feel relaxed when I'm around them. They're just very grounded.
Sure.
That's Taurus energy, grounded to the earth. Yeah.
But you spoke about sensitivity earlier, and I'm very sensitive to energy. I never knew what that was. Like, and I feel my emotions too, right? Like, I'm very sensitive to them, to my emotions. Like, when I feel my emotions, it's like it's right there. I can feel it. And then when I like speaking to you, I can feel your energy. Like, what is it saying about those psychic abilities, or that sensitivity to energy? Like, what is my chart say?
Well, you're number one. The one thing I always say is that the houses matter more than the sign. So you have all these planets in Taurus. You have the sun, Mercury, Mars. So Mercury is how we think, how you communicate. Mars is your drive, your passion. It's in Taurus. Your main identity, your sun's in Taurus. So what that tells me is you got Taurus energy, but what I typically find is when you have 3 or more planets in one area of life, in one house, that house takes over. And so for you, the 4th house energy is morphing and changing you. And the 4th house is a water house. It's water. What does water do? It absorbs everything. So even though you've got a lot of earth energy, it's changed, and it makes you feel a little bit like a Cancer. So Cancer is one of the water signs of the zodiac, right? Cancer is ruled by the moon. So emotions, your inner nature, you're intuitive, highly intuitive, because you have a 4th house stellium. So that's where you get those psychic abilities, is from being a fourth house person, because it's ruled by Cancer. Cancer is the sign of the mother, the nurturer, healer. They love the home. They love to have comfort. They love to cook. They love to entertain in their home. They like to be alone. They need their alone time. But they're also very psychic and intuitive, because the moon rules the fourth house. And the moon affects our emotional nature. Just like the moon affects the tides of the ocean, a full moon, that's why, when there's a full moon, everybody feels a little bit more emotional, a little bit more insensitive, irritable. They're not sleeping, right? Insomnia. Our emotions are heightened during a full moon. And with someone with a lot of fourth house planets like you have, it's going to make your emotions heightened. So you're going to be very empathic and very intuitive, where you're going to know you're going to feel people's energy, and you're going to know what they're thinking and feeling, or you're going to feel at least something's not right here. You may not know what it is, but you'll feel it. You'll sense it, because you're empathic. The other thing in your chart that makes you empathic and in spiritual and psychic is you have the planet Neptune sitting in its ruler, the 12th house. Neptune in the 12th house, and it's in Sagittarius, which is all about belief, faith, hope, religion, philosophy, all these things. And your South Node is there. You've already mastered the 12th house, which is different levels of consciousness, meditation, yoga, prayer, escaping from the world, connecting with the higher power, helping people in a deep way. You've already done it. So that Neptune there, though, makes you very, very open. So what I would say is, and probably when you were younger, you had to learn to have boundaries with other people, because people with problems would be drawn to you. And we tend to attract people that are kind of rough around the edges, let me just say. And we like them because they're real, and they have pain, and they have rawness to them. And that's an Aries Moon thing too. We like people that are a little bit rebellious, and that's an Aries thing. But that Neptune there makes you draw people that might not be good for you, like unhealthy relationships is big. Neptune also fools us. It's like fog, like illusion. So it's where we romanticize things, where we put people up on pedestals, and we think and believe that someone is a certain way. And then when we realize they're not, we're devastated. So Neptune there can be a lot of heartache through love and relationships, right? Because you tend to see the good in people, and you ignore the negative things or the bad traits or whatever. But you also are kind of seeking a soulmate. That's a Neptune 12th house thing. You're kind of seeking a connection, a deep connection, but it's almost impossible to find it in another person, because the 12th house is the house of angels, and you can only find it through connecting with a higher power. And that's where you find unconditional love and acceptance and all this stuff. And then you can have relationships, but no one's ever going to live up to our expectation when you're a 12th houser, because you're looking for like a twin flame, like a soulmate. That's kind of a 12th house Neptune thing. But you find yourself disillusioned by it at times. Like, no one lives up to what you're looking for. And it's not their fault. They're human. But it's because you kind of walk with one foot in the spiritual and one foot in the material. You're an angel. You're a fallen angel. You know what I mean?
Nobody's ever called me that, I can tell you that. But to your point, right? Like, I have come to this realization my entire life that I've looked for external things to make me happy. And I'm talking about all aspects of life, the entire spectrum, from relationships to love to monetary gains to materialistic ideals. And I have really pushed hard towards my relationship with God or source or whatever, the universe, because I know that nothing outside of me is going to give me that satisfaction. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I don't care. Yeah. Name it, any category. Nothing out there is going to give you that unconditional love that you were talking about. It always makes me curious just hearing you speak, right? Like, what would Jesus's or Buddha's like chart look like?
Oh man, I would love to see it. I would say they got 8th and 12th house for sure.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And, there's a lot of theories about, people believe that Jesus, he's associated with the sign Pisces. So he's associated, to compassion, kindness, service to others, spirituality. That's 12th house, right? So a lot of people say, oh, Jesus was a Pisces, but then there's a lot of historians that believe he was actually a Capricorn. He was actually, born in December, they say, but then, a lot of people associate Jesus with Pisces energy. And so, what is the truth? When was Jesus really born? Was he a Pisces or
It's December
Capricorn?
25th. Come on.
I know,
You don't know
right?
that?
Right. I know. But it's like, so, but what's cool? This is one thing I forgot to talk about. So before, in the Bible, the three wise men were astrologers.
They were following
They,
the North Star or the, the
yeah,
the the star, right? They were following the star.
they knew something important was going to happen that night, and they followed it. And then that's, the story as the story goes. But astrology has been around since, ancient times. And then I saw a video recently and I laughed because it's so true. It's like, you believe in astrology whether you know it or not. And it was this video about nature and science and everything that affects us every day. Symbols, hidden symbols that we don't realize, that is astrology. And and another cool thing I realized too, I met somebody years ago that told me about this, and there's a book about it. I'll have to look it up, but it's about Washington D.C. and they call it the D.C. zodiacs. So in Washington D.C., there's more zodiacs, astrology symbols than anywhere in the world. There's
Really?
like 28 or 30 zodiacs hidden within Washington D.C. in monuments, in buildings, the Library of Congress. This on the floor, all the zodiac signs on the ceiling, all the zodiac, and then the whole city, because the people that founded America were astrologers. They were Masons. So the whole city is built astrologically, and it is in the constellation of the sign Virgo. And the buildings all align. You know how everything is so weird. When you're in DC, it's like mathematical. That's because they were astrologers and they built it a certain way. But they also hid astrology symbols throughout the city. So there's statues, there's hidden symbols. And in this, if you go online, the book will tell you where to go in DC to see all of the astrological symbols.
What about
It's
the
pretty cool.
pyramids?
Now that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, the
Uh,
pyramid. Now that we get into some, I do believe there's a lot of theories I've researched about that. Some people say there's no way the Egyptians built the pyramids. Some people think that they did, that they just used labor. They built them, people, the stones. There's evidence. I watch Ancient Aliens. All that stuff. There's no way. I don't think there's any way they did it on their own through physical labor. They didn't even have the kind of technology and things we have today. I don't know if we could build a pyramid like that today,
sure, I
honestly.
don't think we could. But
No,
to your
no.
point about signs, right? Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
guy I follow, Robert Edward Grant, who goes
Oh,
into
okay.
the King's Chamber
Oh,
and
cool.
points out these signs, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
Taurus is a
Yeah.
they have found like, on the walls like imprints of the Taurus, even in
Mm-hmm.
like Da Vinci's work, right? Like the
Yes.
Last Supper, there's like
Oh,
a
yeah.
Taurus up there. There's symbols, alpha,
Yes.
omega, and all of that hidden
Yes.
into the
Mm-hmm.
Last Supper portrait.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you take the Last Supper and you somehow, I don't know how he does it, but he
Yeah.
aligns it with the king's
Oh,
chamber
wow.
in the Great Pyramid, it aligns perfectly with that brown box or whatever that is underneath the table, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
this brown box that's right underneath the table, and nobody really knows what it is. But if you align it with the king's chamber, it aligns perfectly with the outline of the room, which is blew my mind away, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to follow his stuff. Robert Edward
That's really
Grant.
cool. Yeah, Robert. And inside the pyramid, I went in when I went to Egypt, I went in 2001. It was a long time ago, and I'd never been. I went down into the pyramid. But just standing by the Sphinx, looking at it, it was amazing. It was like being on another planet or something. The energy there is so cool. And inside the pyramids, I didn't get to see this where this was, but I know one of the pyramids, there's holes and chambers pointing to each of the star constellations into different planets. And they watch the stars, they follow the star. there's a lot of theories that they left Earth, that the Egyptians left Earth somehow. There's all these theories, right?
Well,
And
look at the
I've
The
researched.
Mayans, right? Like, or something like that. Like they think that
Yeah,
they up and disappeared. They have all this evidence that they existed here, but yet no one can find actual
yeah,
Mayans, right? Like it's just I feel like there's some type of ascension
yes,
or some type of exit
yes,
here, right?
something, yeah, something
It's just
happened.
so fascinating, this stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
the
it's really
science
cool.
behind it. I heard that Carl Jung was an
He
astrologist.
was, he was,
That's where the
he
archetypes come from.
exactly the 12 temperaments, the 12 archetypes are associated with the 12 zodiac signs, and kind of like and it's curious, the 12 sons of Jacob, they each had their different personalities, but the 12 disciples, and some believe there were 13 with Mary Magdalene as possibly the 13th disciple, right? And there's all these theories, but
Did the
um
church finally recognize her as an apostle?
I thought I read something that they might have said she's a saint now or something. They
I
did
think so.
something.
I think
Yeah,
so.
because even the Pope, though, I thought was interesting. Two things. The Catholic Church has the Vatican has the largest astrological library in the world at the Vatican.
Have you been?
I've been to the Vatican. It's pretty
Oh,
cool. And it's all over the churches. There's hidden symbols all over the place, and of astrology. And I was told the Pope has his own astrologer. They're not going to admit that, though. But I thought it was interesting that when this new Pope, when he got in, he was he came out and said it's okay for Catholics to believe in extraterrestrials. He said this because God could have created many different solar systems and planets and people, and it doesn't mean. And I really like that. It's like, wow, like there's more of an open mindedness to it, that there's more than we know. I mean, and then look what happened. I'll tell you a story. I didn't share it earlier, but I saw something in the sky in 1995 with my friend, and I call it, what they call it, UAPs now, whatever, unidentified flying objects is what I always call them, but they're called, I think, UAPs or something like scientific now. But I was driving with her, and it was a clear sky. It was a beautiful full moon. I'll never forget it. And I was in Missouri, where I'm from. I was driving on I-44. She was in the passenger seat. We're singing. I'm looking in the mirror. I see the moon. Everything's fine. As I'm getting ready to get off, I look in the rearview mirror, and it's like there was this like the sky was opened up yellow, and it was a saucer shaped thing hanging across the highway in the sky. And it didn't have blinking lights. It wasn't flying around. It wasn't, I couldn't tell. It wasn't, metallic. It was just like the sky opened up. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And I pulled off, and I'm like, and she's like, oh my gosh. I got out of the car. There were other cars pulled over. And this is one of the things that happened to me right after the going bar, why I believe in stuff. And I stood there and watched this thing, and it took up the skyline. And before our eyes, the thing just shrunk and disappeared. Boom.
wow.
Nothing, like a dot, like it was going away.
You know
But
who
it
you
was
need to read is Chris Bledsoe. Have you ever
okay. No, Chris.
UFO of God is his book.
Oh, you know what? I think I have that book. Yeah, yeah. I haven't read it yet. Chris Bledsoe. Yeah.
Similar
I need to.
story where he's down in North Carolina
Yeah,
and he goes out into a field. I think his son and his friends were out fishing and they come across orbs, or they didn't know they were orbs, but they're
sure.
huge circular
Oh,
red things. And I'm
wow.
not going to go into the story, but similar to your
Sure.
story. But I
Yeah.
think this is like you see this throughout history, right? Like what are
Mm-hmm.
those little kids that saw the sun or whatever, right? Like, or it was in Italy or something, and the sun was dancing in the sky. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's very similar to that, right? Like all this
Yes.
phenomena has been happening throughout the ages. We just forget about it, right? Like just whatever, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I mean, even the ancient, was it the star people? I don't know if it was the was it Sedona, the Stargate? There was a certain, I can't remember what tribe, but they believe in the Stargate, and that the gods from the heavens would come down to the people, right? And this is in the Bible, like with the Nephilim, the fallen angels that came to earth and mated with humans, and then giants, and apparently the flood, God flooded the earth after that. But um there's a lot of these stories about people coming from the sky. And even so much so in the Bible, you know, when you look at Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, I always thought it was weird when I read it, because they were up there looking for him, and he walked out of the sky in a glowing white light. Interesting.
It's all
Where
very,
was he?
it's
Where
all
was
very,
he?
yeah, right.
He was just coming out of a white glaring light of the sky, and there he was. And he walked, you know, and he did his Sermon on the Mount. Yeah.
But a lot of those ascended masters, right, like had special abilities to do things, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
reading Yogananda stuff. I mean, he talks
Yeah.
well in depth about Babaji, right, and
Mm-hmm.
saints being able to materialize out of thin air, right? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is the highest potential for a human being. And I
Yeah.
always wonder, right? Like now that you're speaking, I like
Mm-hmm.
if you get into these states of higher consciousness and you master the 12th house or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that
Mm-hmm.
spirituality side of the things. Like I wonder if, those abilities stay with you, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
talk to the point that throughout my past lives that I have mastered that, right? Like I wonder if that is still
Mm-hmm.
there for me, if that makes
Oh
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You just got to tap into it,
That's the
because
key. That's the thing though, is tapping into it, is remembering,
yes,
right?
what you need to do, this is something that I recommend, just looking at your chart, because you chose to be born with a lot of earth, because I think in the past you were
I keep
very,
running.
very,
I keep running
yeah,
out of here.
yeah, you were very mystical. You were very, that's the thing. We have to learn to be in the world, but not of the world. We have to be practical. We can still be spiritual, but be practical. And, you know, when I was growing up, I wasn't grounded enough. I was too open and too, I want to say too spiritual, but I had to learn to be in the world and to be more practical about things. So I'm both. Now I'm both, but I didn't used to be. And I didn't want to have to be practical. I didn't want to have to pay bills and work and deal with stress. I just wanted to read and do astrology and do all this. But you gotta be in the real world. And some people have a chart where they're meant to be away from the world and they're meant to be in a Buddhist temple. But you chose a chart, kind of like me, where we were born, we have these spiritual memories from the past and gifts that we brought into this life, but we wanted to learn to be practical and help people in a practical way with it. And so that's why I think it's a good balance that you have that Taurus, because it really helps you ground yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And you can really do both. And that's what I kind of do. It's like learning to balance the yin yang, you know, balancing. You don't want to be all up here and like in goofy, la la land, and not real,
We're here for
not
a
here.
reason, right? Like we're here for
Yeah,
a reason and to be human beings, right? Like
that's right.
you get caught up in the game of like I can't
Mm-hmm.
do certain things, or if I'm
Sure.
going to be an ascetic or whatever and not take advantage of being here in this human form, right? Like there's so many different lessons. I mean, you can go either way. I think, Buddha's way, the middle way is probably the best way, to not too, don't
Yeah,
indulge too much in the human
sure.
experience where you're um where you're having a little bit, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe what is right and wrong really is it's the eye of the beholder, essentially, right? Like
True.
it's,
True.
I mean, that's truth. I mean, my truth is different than your truth.
Yeah. Well, if you want to tap into your past life and your past abilities, there are ways to do it. What I recommend is something that I just got certified in, and I'm learning about it. I'm a beginner, but I want to master it, and I don't know enough yet. But it's called QHHT,
Hmm.
Quantum Healing Health Technique, and it's a hypnosis healing technique that Dolores Cannon founded it. She wrote tons of books about this and all her research in hypnosis since the 1960s. But she developed this technique of practitioners, so people use it to heal trauma. That's why I got interested in it, because I work a lot with trauma survivors. So it's really, really powerful, because it connects your higher self, to your past lifetimes and those patterns that where you're stuck, and helps you heal from illness. And a practitioner kind of leads you to into a hypnosis, but you're awake. You're not, it's not like watch this watch, it's not like that. You're aware, and you share what you see, and they lead you through this whole healing thing. And I just took level 1, and I thought, you know what, I have to practice on people, but I don't want to do that till I have it done on myself. because I want to know what it's like, right? Like, does
Sure.
it work? Is it real? So I went a couple weeks ago and had a level 2 practitioner. Didn't know. I went on a website. There are practitioners all over the world. In your area, you can find one and they can do a session with you. And you can go in and kind of say, this is what I want to work on. And that's what I did. I found her picture and I was drawn to her. And I'm like, that's who I want. I called her and I went, and it's a 4 to 5 hour session. It's
Yeah,
deep.
it's long.
And you talk
And it's
but
in
I
person too.
it's in person. They're not allowed to do virtual. You have to be in person. And she got to know me for about 2 hours, and then we went back. And I remember 3 lifetimes.
It's
And the
awesome.
whole thing's recorded. And I tell you, I have a hard time listening to it because I
Really?
cried. I wept. I cried and cried, and I didn't even know why I was crying when I was talking to her about what I was seeing. It wasn't really anything real bad or anything. It was just emotional.
So was
Like
it like you're using your imagination, your third eye, or were
yeah,
you actually
yeah.
there? You know what I mean? Like,
You're in your third eye and you're there, you're like an observer. And she's like, what do you see? And then I was telling her what I saw. I'm a boy, and I was on this beautiful, in this mountain with beautiful mountains with snow on them. It was unreal. And I just cried. She's like, why are you crying? It's peaceful. That's what I said. And it was like amazing. And I was emotional. Like I don't, and it was so real. And it went through this whole thing. And what was really cool was that each life related to now, to this life. And the players, some of the people that are in my life now were the same people in certain lives. And that pattern that I always, you catch yourself saying things sometimes about people, whether it's your parents or your brother or sister, oh my gosh, and you're like, here we go again. This is them. That is past life patterns. And I connected some things, and I said, I want to heal this stuff. I want to let the past go because I'm a Taurus South Node, and I have a hard time letting go of the past. And so I healed some stuff, and it was very powerful. So now I want to learn more, and I want to be able to get really good at doing this technique on other people. So that's kind of what I'm going to start doing as my new hobby, on top of this, and kind of bring it into it, with the nodes, and connect those past lives with the QHHT. That's what I want to do. But I don't have the time. It's just so much I want to learn, and there's not enough time in the day. You
I
know
don't
how
want
it
to
is.
hear that. You always have time. You always have time.
I
We
know,
live,
right?
we
I know. I'm
outside
up
of
to
here, time is an illusion.
true, true. I
Um,
do stay up till midnight most nights, and I'm getting stuff done, and
sure.
but
Well,
it's
let me ask you
cool.
this, right? Like, can you change your stars, right? Like, if you're in a situation where, like, you want to change your reality and you figure out that you are more than this physical body and your
Hmm.
situation is not what you desire at all, right? Like, can you change your stars to totally alter your physical reality?
Yes, we have the power to manifest. We have the power to manifest that law of attraction, the secret, all that. Our mind is powerful, and our beliefs. And so I believe if I can do a chart on someone when they're young, before they're 27, typically, I can kind of share things and say, hey, these are some things I recommend, because there's things you can do to avoid certain situations. But there's some things that
You
I will
can't,
tell
right?
you,
You can't,
Trey,
right?
I'll tell you, there's some things like in the Akashic Records. Um, that's the book of your soul. Edgar Casey read the Akashic Records. There's some things the Akashic Records mirrors your birth chart. So it's the same energy, the same things come out. It's amazing. And I've noticed this for the past 10 years because I'm trained in both. And it's cool because it's like, okay, this is like a mirror of the soul's path and mission. The thing is, some things have to happen because they're meant to. So there's destiny, and I believe there is some things that can be changed, yes, but some things can't. But like if you really want to change, like if you know that you're born a selfish person, okay, there's some people that are born and they're just focused on themselves fully, right? And no one else. And it's all about them, and maybe they're a little bit narcissistic, etc. Um, they can learn to not be that way if they want to, right? But some can't. There's some people that no matter what you do, you can't change people, right? I believe that every soul has its karma, its destiny. And apparently, we chose where we're born, when we're born, what country, what nationality we chose. And we don't remember all of the things we've done and all of the people we've helped and all the people we've hurt. So we have to experience. And so you can't escape your chart. Your chart is your destiny, but you can learn tips to be stronger, to avoid some of the negative, maybe the negative patterns, because you do have free will and choice to try to learn things to overcome certain challenges, in your chart.
Sure. Carmen, you got to come back on. Like
I will. I would
I
love
don't
to.
like we're in overtime right now, but
Oh
I
my
just
gosh, are we?
yeah, it's all good though, right? Like how can people find you? Where can they buy the book?
Yeah, so you can find me at www.carmenturnerschott, schott.com. Phoenixes and Angels is my new book. You can find all my books on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I have several out there, but follow me on Facebook, Carmen Turner Schott writer, Instagram, Carmen Turner Schott author. I have a YouTube channel, Carmen Turner Schott is my handle. Love for you to follow me. I post. If you go to my website, you can contact me. If you want to take classes, I offer workshops and things like that I market. And Astrology 101, I teach classes about the 8th and 12th houses. I can do speaking events, go out and teach if you want me to, do group work. So I'm open to do that and do consults as well. And I love to connect with you.
I love your energy. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.